To build what you've built and your team has built and your family has built, what have you had to sacrifice over the years?
That's a great question, and it's so appropriate. I recently had a beer with one of my high school buddies. You know what he said to me? He said, "A lot of people don't realize you gave up your 20s." I was not going to the clubs and Studio 54 in Manhattan from Long Island and all the places that my buddies and friends were going and having a good time. I was in boardrooms and I was in meetings and I was always the youngest one in the meeting. If you want to grow, you have to go. Like if you want to build your business in a certain industry or a certain place, the only way to do it is to go there. Now, that might sound like elementary advice, but let me tell you, if you're a local business, your biggest strength is you.
Welcome to the Zero to Profitable Franchise Podcast, the best place for you to come to figure out the right franchise to buy and how to get and stay profitable. My name is Tarek Johnson, and I've bought, grown, and sold multiple franchises and got myself free from corporate America, and now I'm on a mission to help you do that too. Here you'll find some of the most in-depth profitable franchise secrets, tangible strategies, and specific mindsets to help you create your dream life through franchising. All right, everyone, welcome to the Zero to Profitable Franchise Podcast. I have here a legend in franchising, Ray Titus. Ray, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Always great to speak about business and get the word out.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So I think maybe the average person may not know who United Franchise Group is or what they do. So let's start there before we get to some of the real exciting, juicy stuff.
Well, okay, great. And they may know us from our brands that we run and have started over the years, but maybe not our umbrella name, which is United Franchise Group. But to take you back to 1986 is when I started Signorama, the sign franchise, with one store. And we built Signorama to be about 800 stores worldwide in 60 countries. And today, my oldest son, AJ, runs Signorama. And then we added Fully Promoted, which we have about 300 of those worldwide. And my son Andrew is the president of that company and runs that company. It is a family affair here at United Franchise Group. I have three sons that are all involved in the business and three nephews that are all involved in the business. Next up, we did Transworld, which was our business brokerage, and we partnered with my partner Andy Cagnetta, who had built up a nice brokerage here in the state of Florida. But we turned it into a franchise and took it worldwide. And today we're from Australia to England and around the world. And it's the largest business brokerage in the world. And we've done that in 15 years. So we have approaching 500 locations with Transworld as well. So that's really coming along nicely and catching up to the others and growing. We have a food division called Big Flavor Brands division, and we have two brands there. We have Gray's Craze, which is charcuterie boards and boxes, and we have about 100 locations with that brand. And then we have the Great Greek Mediterranean Grill. We have 70 restaurants with that one. We also have a co-working division called Vast. And that one has three brands in it, one called Venture X, one called Office Evolution, and another one called Intelligent Office. And they all have their differences between the three brands, but it's over 200 locations worldwide and growing. It's the largest franchise organization in co-working as well. Since then, we also started a company called Exit Factor, which is consulting services to help business owners prepare their business for sale and go from there. And we also have Accurate Franchising, which turns businesses into franchises. that want to expand and scale their business, and we do that as well. So we have many other companies that we run and operate that service our franchise owners and our organization, whether it's franchise real estate, which helps find locations and negotiate leases for people, and throughout our business. But we've invested in a lot of other services and other companies. But that's United Franchise Group as a whole. And it's exciting times for our organization. I know some people see the name United Franchise Group and they see all these brands and they think we're a private equity firm, and they don't realize that we're a privately held company. I'm the same guy that started it 40 years ago, and we're a family run business. And so we've been at this for, like I said, almost 40 years and building and growing our business, based here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and which is a great place to be, except between June, July, and August, where it gets very hot, very hot.
Yeah, and I'm up in Orlando, and it's already starting to get very hot. I don't know if you guys are getting hit with that heat wave, but it's kind of brutal.
We are, we are. I had a meeting this morning for the staff, and my walk-up music was the Beach Boys because it's summertime. It's summertime now. It's really hot out there and humid, but we can't complain because come November, December, January, February, the rest of the country is either under snow or freezing, and we're at 75, 80 degrees and loving life. So we'll take the good and the bad and move forward.
Yeah, that's a great mindset. It's interesting to me. I think framing is powerful. Where okay, if I were to talk to someone in the gym who is in average shape and they started trying to give me advice on or tips on what I should do in my workout, okay, maybe I entertain the advice, but maybe goes one ear out the other. Now, granted, if a guy comes up to me who's pretty jacked and looks really fit and lean, all of a sudden I hear that advice from a different lens and perspective because of the framing of what that person has accomplished. So I just wanted to point that out before we start diving into some of the nitty gritty, the frame of what you've created with over 1,800, franchise locations, 11 brands, that you just mentioned. It's a powerful frame. I mean, what you've built, you and your family and your team, is not normal. So I'm curious. Not normal in a good way, of course.
I was gonna say that's not the first time I've been called not normal. Okay, just so you know, I am from New York, so I'm used to that. So don't worry about it. That's not a problem. But I appreciate where you're coming from because it is the team. It is the people, the whole group. I have brand leaders, brand presidents, and people that make this thing work. Yes, I started it with one sign shop in New York and hired the staff and grew from there, and we went. But I think we're an example of just an organization that is stayed consistent and true to its mission statement, and really have had goals every year and is very driven.
Hey, so I recently put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that make $1 million or more. If you want to see that list, then click the link below in the description or go to franchiseempire.com/low cost. Let's get back to the episode. Yeah, 100%. So I'm curious, Ray, what, you not to try to make you sound old, but you've been doing this 2 years longer than I've been alive. So, but what have you, I think, nowadays entrepreneurship is starting to get this kind of glamorous perception, right? Because of social media, we're seeing people's highlight reels, right, and their successes. But we're not seeing the 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that went into it. I'm curious, to build what you've built and your team has built and your family has built, what have you had to sacrifice over the years?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question, and it's so appropriate. I mean, I recently had a beer with one of my high school buddies, and You know what he said to me? He said, "A lot of people don't realize you gave up your 20s. You gave up." I mean, look, I'll date myself, okay? I mean, that I was not going to the clubs and Studio 54 in Manhattan from Long Island, and all the places that my buddies and friends were going and having a good time. I was in boardrooms and I was in meetings, and I was always the youngest one in the meeting, and in fact, I was the only one who didn't smoke. Okay. I was in meetings when I first started, and there were 8, 10, 12 people. Every single person was smoking cigarettes and or cigars in the meeting room while the meeting's going on. And I'm kind of like this, okay, because the smoke was coming down, right? So uh, you know, I still remember people smoking in the airplanes, and when they came out with a non-smoking rose, I was like, "Oh, this is the best."
Rose.
Rows. Wait, you gotta hear this. They had 3 rows that was non-smoking, and the people behind you were smoking, and they're blowing smoke between the chairs, and you're kinda like, "What the this is supposed to be non-smoking." And then they came out with non-smoking airplanes, and I thought I went to heaven. Like, this was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I lived on airplanes. I still do. I'm on plane every single week of my life and going somewhere. And so it's kind of a part of the business. If you're going to run a worldwide company, you have to go. In fact, what I've always told my people and franchise owners alike, if you want to grow, you have to go. Like if you want to build your business in a certain industry or a certain place, the only way to do it is to go there. Now, that might sound like elementary advice, but let me tell you, especially today with the technology and all the advances, so many people are missing the main point, which if you're a local business, your biggest strength is you and your local business. So why would you send prices, give prices over the telephone or email prices or proposals? When your biggest strength is you and you're local, why wouldn't you go face to face and look to close the deal face to face with them, right? So by doing it on the telephone or by shooting an email to somebody, you're basically playing somebody else's game. You're not gearing your business toward your strength, which is being local and building relationships with those people. And it's how we've become successful is having local entrepreneurs that can get face to face with people quickly. See, speed wins. In business, speed, it's not, we're not in exact science. Like, I thank God for the engineers who are exact anytime I drive over a bridge, right? But we don't need to be exact with everything that we do in business. I mean, obviously, you got to be right and you got to make it right, but the speed is so important in business. So I think Amazon has proven that over and over, and they're one of the most successful companies in the world, and it's that convenience and that speed matched with a great price.
Yeah, it's interesting. It took me some time to learn about speed, and from the other side of it, one of the things that I talked to our team about, and it started with me having to learn this first because I can be quite analytical at times. And I remember from the ages of 18 to 26 having 9 failed businesses before I opened my first franchise, and then finally was able to experience my first layer of success in business. But I started to learn about this concept called speed of execution. And it was really pretty mind blowing for me. And it's taken years to really build that muscle. It's almost like, just having a workout over the years and hit the gym many, many times to finally start to develop it. But I love that. I love that you mentioned just speed in general. Is speed of execution something that you've utilized over the years? And maybe give me an example of an area where it's been key to your success.
Well, I would tell you it's a big chunk of our success and a big chunk for our franchisees. Now, the franchisees, think of this, all the different industries we're in, right? They get to open up the business and we take care of all the little things. so that they can focus on the most important thing, which is building their business, which is focusing on the customers and the staff and run the business, where they don't have to focus all their time and try to create a website or printed literature or other things that are there. They now have a focus on the most important things. And that's what takes a lot of entrepreneurs down the wrong path, is they start focusing on all the little things that aren't important to the success of the business, but they're important for their checklist to get things done. And they do it. And, I just wish they got the same list that our franchisees would get. And they go check, 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 and they can focus on the most important things, which is working with those customers. But I'll give you an example of speed. I had a father and son that I met. This is many years ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago, 27 years ago, and at a trade show in Washington, D.C. And they came in and they said, "We've been watching you." They're from Australia. They said, "We've been following Signarama and what you've been doing with Signarama because it's an area of interest for us. And we would like to take Signarama to Australia. And we're willing to offer you a lot of money at the time." It was like, I want to say it was like $800,000 for the rights to bring Signarama to Australia. Anyway, long story short, I was blown away, right? They had a whole proposal. And again, 27 years ago, $800,000 today is a lot of money, but 27 years ago, it was a lot of money. Okay. And I called my dad up and I said, "You're not going to believe this, but I think I've got a sale for Australia for $800,000. And my dad doesn't even blink. He says, "For what you're giving them, is that a lot of money or a little money?" And I said, "I don't know, because I've never been to Australia." And he said, I mean, the only thing I knew was Crocodile Dundee and, a blooming, the, the onion rings, right? Or whatever, right? So I didn't know anything about Australia, right? And so he said, "It sounds like you got to get your ass on a plane and go to Australia." So I booked a flight for Australia the next week. I flew to Australia. My assistant set me up to meet accountants, attorneys. I met the president of the Franchise Association. I met the father and son. We had dinner at the Sydney Opera House. They were very well to do. So anyway, long story short, after about 3 days of whining and dining in Australia, I realized I was giving it away. I realized that I didn't want to. So I started making calls to the States, and I called several employees, and I found an employee that would relocate to Australia for 3 years. I said, "I don't want you to come for 6 months or a year. I need 3 years." And he said, "I'll do it for 3 years if you come to Australia every quarter for the 3 years."
Wow.
And I said, "Done. I'll come." And that's exactly what took place. And him and his wife moved to Australia, uh, helped build the business. I went to Australia 4 times a year minimum. I've been there now 70 times, all over the whole country. We have almost 200 franchisees in Australia. And that was because of speed. Got on a plane the next week, got in front of those people, made a decision, made the calls, got them to relocate. Now we have the largest sign company in Australia, Signarama, and the largest promotional products in Australia, fully promoted. And we're bringing other brands, and we have 25 full-time employees down under that work with our franchise owners. And it's a great success story for our organization. So that would give you an example of, I think most people probably would have taken the 800,000. And to be honest, if my dad wasn't around, I probably would have done it as well. But my dad was a very, very experienced business person, who had a tremendous amount of street smarts. And I was blessed to have him as not only my dad and best friend, but as my mentor, and who helped me really forged my way in the beginning years. So that was great advice, and we followed it and listened and went forward.
That's incredible. What I'm curious. I mean, you guys have so many franchisees at this point and over the last, 35, 40 years. Um the magic question, which is what is the difference between a successful franchisee and one who is not, outside of following the system? Because every franchisor and founder says follow the system. So outside of that, what have you learned about people and the ones who have been the most successful?
Okay, so you're going to preface the question and take away the biggest reason. Okay, so now I understand how this podcast works. Okay, so look, you have to recognize that individuals are stubborn. Individuals have all kinds of things that go on in their lives, like we all do, right? Marital problems, drug problems, alcohol problems, health issues. I mean, all kinds of things that come in. But here, I will tell you in one, two, three, why people don't get the success they want and how they can get it. The first thing is what you preface. They don't follow the program. They buy a franchise and then they want to tell us how to run it. Why would you do that? Okay. Follow the system, follow the program. It works. Follow the system. The second thing that would happen would be problems that happen with them that are out of their control. I had a great couple running a business and their kid was on crack, and that they could not think straight. They didn't care about anything else in life other than their kid, and I don't blame them. I've been blessed not to have that, but I don't know how I would be if that was the case. We had to sell that business for them, right? And they had to go on with their life and rectify that situation. So you get somebody has a heart attack, somebody has cancer, somebody has, so you have problems that happen to people that are out of their control and out of our control. And then you have the last group, which is our people that are lazy, people that just aren't going to work. Like, how about this? Oh, they buy a successful franchise from us. Oh, Ray does such a great job. He's been around for 40 years. Sinorama is unbelievable success. They buy the business. They sit in their store. They put their feet up on the desk and they say, okay, make me a millionaire. We don't make people millionaires. They make themselves millionaires. We give them the opportunity and the vehicle to do it, and they can do it. We have franchise owners all over the world that do it. Okay. But they work. They work very hard. I would say they're harder workers. The ones who do really well in it are harder workers. They follow the program closer and they stay focused on the sales side of the business rather than getting caught up in all of the little things that do not matter for the business. The people that make a mountain out of a molehill, people that exaggerate negatives, people that, I mean, they get caught up in all of this nonsense. And all of a sudden I'm sitting with somebody and they go, well, I had to do this, and I had to do this. And it's like a timeout. You couldn't have outsourced that? And they look at me and they go, who would I outsource it to? Well, we got another store that's 7 miles down the road. They could have done the work for you. Oh, I didn't think about that. Why not? You're part of a team. You're part of a system. It's right here. If you pick up the phone and call us, we would have told you, right? And so you can even have your vendors or suppliers do work for you. I'll tell you a quick story. Early on, I had a franchise owner in training school, and I give a speech in every training school. And I said, at the end, I always end, if you ever need anything, give me a call. It's just kind of a habit, I think, right? Like, I'll just say it. And this franchise owner, the next week, calls me. He's in his store for the first week. And he calls me, and my assistant goes, Ray, it's so-and-so from the Sinorama, right? And I said, all right, put him through. So I take the call. He said, yeah, I talked to you last week in training school, and you said call you. I have 2 employees, and yesterday, both of them Okay. They came in and they said, we want to double our salaries or we're both walking out and you won't have any employee. What should I do? I said, listen to me very carefully. Fire them both. And he just sat there, dead silence. He goes, then what do I do? Then call me back. After you do it, call me back. Goodbye. He fires both of them and calls me back and says, Ray, I fired them both. Now what do I do? I said, you fired them both? I didn't tell you to fire them both. I told you to fire one. He goes, you told me to fire both. I go, calm down. I'm joking with you. Okay. You got to calm down. All right. This is not going to be life or death. You're going to be fine. He goes, hold on 1 second. He comes back on the phone. I said, what's going on? He said, well, one of the employees just came in and said he'd take his job back for the same pay and he can do the work of the other guy because the other guy was lazy and he could do it all himself. So I said, I guess your problem's solved and you just cut your payroll by 50%. You're welcome. Goodbye.
Wow.
That's like textbook that we see out there, right? So you're going to have issues or challenges that come up, but you got to address them and you got to work through it. And I think that's key, but it's that speed, right? It's that speed with employees, it's a speed with customers. It's really, really getting out there face to face and gearing the business toward your strength.
Hey, so if you want to learn the right way to own a money-making franchise without putting your family at risk financially, then check out our free masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the episode. You said a couple of things, and one of them was, focusing on sales, and I don't think you said it explicitly, but implicitly, marketing. And not that you have any businesses pertaining to marketing or anything. But I think back to when I was trying to start all those businesses on my own from the ages of 18 to 26. And I was getting so caught up in the checklist, right? As you were talking about do this, make sure the website looks good, right? Instead of just going out there and producing revenue. It was, again, something that I had to learn the hard way. And when my wife and we took back in 2015, we signed our first franchise agreement, took $300,000 out of our home in a home equity loan. And I did it with my wife kind of screaming and kicking. So probably didn't do it the most kosher way. But I was so terrified of failing and of potentially ruining my marriage that I just naturally knew I have to focus on sales and marketing. It was like God just came in and was like, hey, you're so terrified. Let me show you the path, and looking back, I wasn't doing it that intentionally. Like I hadn't learned that lesson yet, that sales cures all. And then there's a phrase, the best marketer wins. And then I started to realize like all the operational stuff, yeah, it's great and all, but if I produce enough revenue, I can hire someone really good that can handle all the operational stuff.
Sales cures everything. Like if in any small business, if you get the revenue, that's half the battle. Like that you're ahead of the game in every aspect. I think that's the difference. What we're talking about is the difference between starting a business on your own and going with a franchise operation that already has a lot of those little things already done, or we'll just kind of get it done together. And it gives the franchise owner the freedom to just focus on building and growing their business. And that's really what it's all about. I just finished my 9th book, which is called The Ownership Economy. And it contemplates something that there is going to be more business owners in the United States than there are going to be employees. And so I call it the ownership economy. Now, there's a lot of people that would say that's impossible. You could never have as many owners as you do employees. And I would take the other side of that debate And that's what I do in the ownership economy. Now, my books are available at raytitus.com. And any money that goes to buy any of those books, I use to buy other books and pass out to all my franchise owners. So your donation goes toward educating my staff and my franchisees. And just so you know, I don't take a dime of it, but it goes to other books and passing out those books to franchise owners at conferences or training school or our staff as well.
That is incredible. I'm looking forward to reading that. Ownership economy, fascinating. That kind of leads into a question that I had, which was, so I just got back. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday from a business mastermind program that I'm in, called Strategic Coach, and the guy who founded it wrote books like Who Not How, 10x is easier than 2x. Not sure if you've heard of it, any of those, but what I have invested so much money in myself over the last 10 years, just trying to figure this all out, right? Because there was a point right before we bought our first franchise that I was going to give up on becoming an entrepreneur. I just thought it's not in the cards for me. Maybe like God's plan is that I'm not meant to be an entrepreneur. I've really almost bought into that mindset. But I've just done a lot of personal growth over the years to really hustle myself to where I am. I'm curious for you, what's your take on personal development? What have you done or invested in over the years in order to continue to level up? Because I'm sure the Ray from 40 years ago that, opened your first location and now running the empire that you do, like John Maxwell talks about, like, your leadership level has to grow. So how have you grown your leadership level?
Yeah, it's a great point. You have to evolve with your organization. And the way we've done that is embracing lifelong learning. So we focus on our employees. The better the employees become, the better the business becomes. So if our employees grow, they have books to read. We have a library here. We do seminars. We feed into our employees, and we know the stronger they get, the better they get, the better the business becomes. And it's not the other way around. Employees are not going to grow to what you need. You have to grow them to get what you want. Right. And so there's a big difference between those two. So I think embracing that lifelong learning and reading and seminars and always looking to embrace change. To me, when I look at a business today, you're right. When I started in 1986, it was before Al Gore invented the internet. Okay. And it was before, no cell phones. There was no GPS. There was none of that existed. All right. I remember the first fax machine in our office, and we're looking at it going, how is this thermal paper coming out? Like, where's this coming from? And so it was amazing. And so you have to evolve your skills as times change around you, but also as your business changes. So you can't just stay the same, because those are the dinosaurs and they become extinct. We've got to embrace change. We have franchise owners. A lot of times, our average franchise owner is probably 52 years old, which means nothing, because we have owners in their 30s and 40s, and we have owners in their 50s, 60s, and 70s and older, right? So it really, 52 tells you nothing. At the end of the day, though, they get kind of sometimes stuck in their ways. And when we talk to them, we got to say, you got to embrace this change. Sometimes I'll talk to them and say, let me ask you a question. When you're sitting in your recliner or on the couch at home and you're watching a ball game, and the ball game ends and you want to watch something else, do you get up and change the channel on the TV, or do you use a clicker? And they look at you like you're crazy, and they'll say, of course, I use a clicker. What are you talking about, right? The remote. I'll switch. Okay, good. So you embrace that change, but you won't embrace the new POS system that we have in front of you, because you're just used to the old one. Like, I don't understand. Why do you embrace that? Is it because you're lazy and you want to sit on your couch and change the station? Or is it a better way to do it? Is it better and faster? And is it more convenient? And of course it is. I use it too. But now let's come over here. This is better, faster, more convenient, going to save you time, but you have to learn something new. And change is what a lot of people are afraid of. They're afraid of it because it's unknown. When there's a change, it's unknown. That's, like when our, and not to get into politics at all, but when our administration now came out and said they were going to do tariffs on other countries. Well, it was unknown. Like, nobody knew what was going to happen, right? So the stock market goes down and everybody's panicking and then all of a sudden, a couple weeks go by and then they're negotiating, and then this country comes forward and says, we'll do a deal, and they get a better deal. And then there's a delay on this tariff and a move on this and something else. And slowly the stock market came back up to where it was, okay, and better. Right. And slowly more and more people are figuring out, hey, wait a second, maybe this trade thing and these tariffs thing was not a bad thing, because it wasn't fair the way they were doing it. And now people start to look at it a little differently. But the first inkling of it was the unknown. And that's where chaos rules. And so that plays with people's minds. So when they first see a new software, or they first see a new piece of equipment, or whatever it is, this new thing called AI. Okay, what is this AI thing, right? And then I go to them, I say, here's what I want you to do. I think AI is bigger than the internet. I think AI has the potential to be way, way bigger than the internet. And they, what are you, out of your mind? They, going back and forth. What is it? I say AI looks at the internet as its database. That's it. And AI just sucks the information from its database, which is the entire internet. So take a step back and go, what's more important? Are you more important, or is your database more important? Like, think about it. AI is you. And it's working the database of the entire internet. So we have to embrace change, but at the appropriate speed. That's something that for business, speed wins, as we talked about earlier, right? So it's important we do it fast. And then you go back to government and you go, well, speed creates chaos for government people because they're not used to doing anything fast, right? If you've been in motor vehicles, yes. You go in motor vehicles, you learn that pretty quick, okay? Things happen really slow in government. So now you got a businessman in there who, again, not to get into politics right or left, but who's all about getting things done fast. That's what creates some of the chaos. That's what creates some of the unknown. And that's when people get scared. So in business, we've got to move forward. We've got to embrace change. And we've got to be able to utilize those changes to enhance our business and ourselves. But I think the money you spend on yourself, Torek, is so important that you continue to do that, because I'm never going to stop doing that. I was at a seminar, a John Gordon seminar last week in Jacksonville, Florida, okay, which had, Billy Donovan, the coach of the Bulls, was there. And I knew Billy from high school. We played high school basketball against each other, actually, which is kind of funny. We were laughing about it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, right? I played at St. Dominic's. He played at St. Agnes, and we were kind of rivals. I didn't say this to him, but I'll tell you, we were down by 17 at halftime at St. Agnes and came back and won by 12. Okay, so
man, that's a big swing.
You can imagine what we did to them in the second half. All right, we came out really hard on them in the second half. But no, Dabo Sweeney was there, and Sean McVay was there, and they were all sharing their experience. Kevin O'Donnell, the coach of the the coach of the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of Jim Rome, who just got inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame, was speaking. So, I mean, we learn a little from each one, and then you gather up, you go, I'll take that. That's a good nugget. Let me grab that. And that's how you keep looking for. I took my chief development officer, and he and I spent 2 days together, and it was great time together that we were able to get some business done together as well, but also spend time learning and growing in the seminar.
That's really cool. Speaking of people on your team, you mentioned your chief development officer. Most of these franchisees and people who wind up buying a franchise, a lot of their success outside of them actually following the system, working hard, is going to be based on who they hire. And hiring the right or wrong person can dramatically steer the outcome of their business. What have you learned about hiring over the years? I would imagine you aren't the one doing the direct hiring as much now than maybe 20 or 25 years ago. But what are your best practices that you've used over the years? What are you looking for, and what are the red flags?
Okay, so Torque, let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to tweak your premise.
Okay.
I want to tweak it, because I do agree with you. A lot of their success will have to do with the people they hire, but also how those people are managed. So it's the hiring of people and the managing of the people. That's the combination that comes together, right? So you can hire a very average employee and have a great career with them and do wonderful things with them. You can hire the best employee and mishandle them, and they're going to mess you up really bad, and they could have been a great employee for you if you mismanage them or don't treat them right. So what I would say to you is that, first, the old saying of hire slow, fire fast comes into play.
So you believe that, and you follow that methodology.
I do for smaller business. The larger you get, the more money you have, the longer you can give them. When I first started, I didn't have the money, and I wasn't going to ask my dad for more money. So I would only take a certain amount of time with people. I couldn't afford to get to wait any longer, right? They had to produce over certain, or I had to move on, right? And so, I think it's a combination of finding the right people and managing them correctly. You never lose hiring a salesperson if you manage that salesperson correctly. Let me tell you why. Because if you manage the salesperson to get out and market and promote, even after they're gone, the phone's still going to ring from people that they met. So you'll get a return on investment on a salesperson if you manage that salesperson to make phone calls and do the visits and do what they're supposed to do to build the business. Long-term residuals will come from those sales calls that they made, and you'll get the benefit, and you won't have to pay them a commission. So you never lose on hiring salespeople if you manage the salespeople correctly. If you keep bad people, you will lose. If you try to change everyone, you will lose. Now, I look at this and I say, there's been plenty of people that I've worked with over the years that we've changed and we've enhanced and we've made better and stronger, and they're long-term employees and done fantastic with us. Like that, I could give you story after story after story, right? But then on the other side, there's even good employees that I fired and became better employees where they went because I fired them. Like I did them a favor because they did not do what they were supposed to be doing. They didn't take it serious. They weren't all in. And I can't build my business with people that aren't all in. I've got to have good people. Now, they don't have to be great. And some of my people are great. I mean, amazing. But they got to be good. They got to care. They got to be positive. They got to work hard. Like if you're missing some of these things, if you're negative, I can't do anything with you. If somebody's complaining, if they're a complainer, they're out. Like you can't keep a complainer. They got to change out. You get one chance on that. You complain to me. Tell me what the problem is. You complain sideways or down, you're out. You're gone. You can't work here. Like it doesn't work. You've got to bring an energy, and you're setting the stage as the business owner. You set the example and you set the stage for them. But two things, not just one. It's not a magic pill finding an employee and just plugging them in and then you'll just be successful. Sometimes it works that way, right? We get lucky. But most times it's you finding somebody that's good and you're plugging them in, but then you got to train them and work with them and manage them. And some people, they need a pat on the back, and some people need a kick in the ass, and some people, they
Need
don't,
both.
they need both, and their emotional roller coaster, and you don't have time for that, and they got to find somewhere else to go. And you got to make that decision in a shorter amount of time when you're a smaller business and have less money to work with than when you're a bigger business. IBM will say, we've got to figure this thing out over the next year. Okay. Well, I don't even have a month. I got 30 days. Like, a year. We don't have that kind of funding. Like, I can't wait for, you got to figure this thing out this week, next week. Like, and I mean, for us, we're probably at 3 to 6 months now. Right. So, because we're bigger, but I like my people to move fast, and make decisions, not too fast on people. I mean, nobody gets anything out of turnover with people. You want to keep people. It's hard enough to find good people. If they're good, you know what I'll do? I'll find another seat on the bus for them. I'll move them somewhere else. Now we've got so many different brands and so many different companies and divisions that maybe somebody isn't the salesperson that we thought they were, but I can move them into operations and they might thrive in operations. And they got the job as a salesperson or vice versa.
Yeah, interesting.
We had a store in Australia, a very successful Signorama store. Had a couple retired. And the new guy bought it, comes in, and he interviews every employee, which is what we tell him to do. Sat down with each employee, interviewed each employee. Well, there was this young girl there that was answering the phone and doing the filing. And when he interviewed her, she said, my dream is to be in a full commission sales role where I will get, and where I will earn everything that I can go out and get.
Who says that?
She did $400,000 in sales in her first year that he moved her into the sales role. And she increased the second year. The business went up 50% in sales. And this was a store doing over $1 million in sales, right? So anyway, long story short, we're at the conference 2 years later. And the old owner, who we stay friends with, right, sends me postcards and he retired, but we were holding a conference in his city. He comes to see me and we have a beer and he says, hey, Ray, did you hear about the idiot owner who had the best salesperson answering the phone and doing the filing? I said, yeah, he's an idiot, wasn't he? Right. And we cheers to each other. Right. But it's right in front of you sometimes and you don't even know it.
Wow. What a powerful story. And I'm noticing how great you are at telling stories, by the way, which is like a lesson that I'm adding to my repertoire. I know we have to rock and roll, but before we go, you were talking about right before we started recording that you send out this newsletters to franchisees. Tell me about what that is and what you put in it and what value does that add to your organization and your franchisees?
Well, I hope it adds good value, but what I do as the CEO is I do a streaming video every single month to the whole system. And I talk about, specific subjects that are on my mind or things that I'm seeing out there. Also, we do success stories for all the brands. I make a book recommendation every single month to the system as well. And this goes out to everyone. We started this when COVID hit and have been doing it ever since. And I'm talking to you from UFG Studio, and that's something that we pride ourselves in. And so it's something that increased our communication, and for me to get in front of the franchise owners every single month. Now, it takes for them to click on play and to watch it, but from our end, You lead the horse to the water, but the horse has to bend down and drink it, right? And so it's up to them if they want to take the 15 minutes and watch the video each month with that I send out. But I think it brings great value to the system and the franchisees, but also our employees who all watch it as well, and want to know what's going on out there, and they hear the success stories and their stories. See, that's part of our job here is to facilitate success stories so that other franchise owners will know they can achieve that. If they know other people are doing it, they know it's achievable and that they can do it. And if you give them little things to do, I'll throw one out to you. Everybody knows that if you get more 5-star reviews, you'll get more business. Everyone will agree to that. But not everyone does anything to get more 5-star reviews. So there's a candy bar called the 5-star candy bar. You can get it in Walmart. It's from Cadbury. So we have franchise owners that pass out a 5-star candy bar and say, I'll give you a 5-star if you give me a 5-star.
That's clever.
Okay, little corny thing, right? Well, guess what? The franchise owner who did it got the most 5-star reviews. So it's not so corny anymore. It's something that worked. We have franchise owners that do pass out 5-star cookies, and it's just something that's there as an organization. So we're always looking for ways to improve the business. But it's really been my pleasure spending time with you and sharing some of our old stories and getting together, and thank you for supporting the Titus Franchise Center at Palm Beach Atlantic University, which is one of our give back programs as an organization. We started a franchise school at that university here in West Palm Beach and made a large donation, and we take on a lot of interns and work in the school to help them learn more about franchising and grow entrepreneurship and franchising.
I love it. Yeah, I had it on my list to hit on that, so I'm glad you did that before we rock and roll. Fantastic. Well, for those of you who want to learn more about United Franchise Group and their brands, where do they go, Ray?
They go to unitedfranchisegroup.com if they want to learn, and they can click on any brand they see there that interests them and they want to find out more. If they're interested in one of my books, they go to raytitus.com and they just pick a book and it'll get sent to you. Amazon does a great job with the delivery, and so it's there. And so we thank you for your time, and we believe in franchising and entrepreneurship, and I'm glad that you had those lessons that you learned and you didn't give up, that you stayed the course, and then you found a franchise that you would make it go, and that's awesome. So congratulations to you, Tariq, as well.
Thanks, Ray. I appreciate it, man. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Well, you have a great day, and thank you for your time.
Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.